Today, I want to go through a really important topic with you, one that is currently being discussed far too little in the market. On the contrary, it's even criticized when people talk about selling crypto. For my part, I've already taken 20% out of my assets, and I want to share with you now why and for what reasons. But my question, or what I also want to address in this video, what is your exit strategy? What is your price target for your crypto asset that you might be holding? When do you take profits? Because we must not forget, just take a look at the market and what Bitcoin has achieved in this period. If we talk about the period from the bear market to the current bull market top, that's nearly 700%. And people are still saying today, hey, selling is a mortal sin right now because it's only going up, it's only going up. Sure, we could go higher. This isn't meant to be investment advice or a recommendation to sell from me in this video. I just want you to maybe think about it. What is your exit strategy? What you definitely don't want to experience, and I'm telling you this, though maybe you've already experienced it yourself. Just like me here, I bought Bitcoin at around $3,800 and now I've actually realized my first average selling price at about $110,000 and I took out 20% at that point. I went through every one of these markets and I can tell you the feeling during such a hype market, and that lasted a few months. I'm talking about I bought it around August, probably at the end of August, and by the end of the year, when the hype was happening, I could have made about 800%. Hey, we're talking about just a few months here. Did I do it? No. My opinion was Bitcoin would definitely keep rising. That's how I saw it. We went into a bear market, and that one also lasted for quite a while. I don't even want to tell you what that feeling was like, when you think, wow, finally a lot of cash from my investment that went in here. I rode it all the way back down again. We went from just under 70,000 down to roughly $15,000 with Bitcoin. The feeling down here, how little is left, absolutely not pleasant. I don't think I need to talk about how things are right now. We're at just under $120,000. But just as a small example, do you have an exit strategy when, like here, you've gained 800%? Or if I calculate it here as well, why didn't I sell here, even though that was already 3,400%, which I could have taken or at least taken partial profits? We're talking about the top now, even if it's 3,000%. Because corrections do come. Bad markets, bad times, yes, those will come our way again, and they are coming. And in my personal opinion, you'll definitely be able to buy Bitcoin at a better price than where we are now. And that's why my question is, why not at least realize a part of it, or even more? I can tell you I've never felt as satisfied as I do now, knowing that if Bitcoin drops, and guys, you saw how quickly all the tops were reached. This bull market top here, when we entered this hype, this bull market, how quickly it was sold off. Here we had a strong correction, but even here it briefly spiked up and was then sold off again. And we don't know when will our bull market top actually arrive. Is it already here? We really don't know. You can't say, I can't say. In fact, none of the YouTubers out there can actually predict it, because when the market shifts, it's usually already too late for us to react. And that's something that really needs to be said. And you want to be the kind of person, and that's why today we're talking about the exit strategy, who sells off some holdings on the way up, not when the market is already falling, right? Not the kind of person who says, I'll just sell a little because it might go back up, and then it keeps dropping and dropping. People end up selling in a falling market. No, professional traders and investors don't do that. And just take a look, do a quick Google search at why Warren Buffett, for example, has once again accumulated so much cash and is out of so many stocks and bonds and similar investments. Why am I making this video? Right now there is endless greed and hype in the market. All we have to do is look around, not just that. Try talking to someone about selling. Right now everyone is saying, no, we're still going there, we're still going there. The market is going to explode. I can imagine that too, honestly, yes. By the end of the year we could still see some real hype, but we don't really know if a trend reversal could happen at any moment due to a global event. And just talking about it right now, let me give you an example. XLP dump, Ripple CEO founder under fire for moving 175 million XRP near the highs. In other words, he sold $175 million worth. Hey guys, he owns over 8.4 billion worth of XLP and sells 175 million. And for that, he's being criticized, massively criticized by the community. How can he sell when we're at such a high? No, guys, the truly reasonable ones, the really sensible investors out there, that's what they do. They take profits out bit by bit. They set their price target where they say that's where I'll sell. And honestly, even if we look at this here, just as a small example, we have this low here and then we go up to this high. That's simply a Fibonacci extension. And just look at where Bitcoin landed exactly. For many people, for many investors looking at the long term, we've now reached a price target where a selling zone is taking place. And we can see that too, yes. I want to show you this example again. Big whales with over 10,000 Bitcoins. Guys, they're currently selling off. The more the price rises here, the more they sell off. Just as a small example. And we retailers, the largest group out there, why isn't the majority super rich? Why isn't the majority as incredibly successful as others? Because they don't set themselves apart from the others and make the smart moves, but instead make the typical retail moves. And now, if I take away the 10,000 Bitcoin whales, that is whales with 10,000 or more Bitcoins, you can see that even among those holding 1,000 to 10,000 Bitcoins, they're also starting to sell off some Bitcoin right now. And when do they do that? We can see here in the past, when the price reached a high, that's when they sold, and only at a low do they start buying again. From friends who have written to me saying things like, I never have any luck with crypto. Why is that? Because they usually get in during a hype and don't get out at the right time. And that's why these losses happen every time. You don't want to sell, you think, the market is pumping right now. I absolutely have to get in. And we're seeing a similar scenario right now. Just look at social media, look at YouTube. They're telling you to invest in Ethereum now at $4,000, not earlier when it was down at $2,000, at $1,700, $2,300, or maybe even at $2,500. No, Ethereum was basically considered dead, and now, when it's just under $4,000, everyone is supposed to jump in. I get it, yes, a lot of ETFs are buying in too, but take a look at the ETFs, watch them closely, because they can be a good indicator for an exit strategy. And by that I mean we have access to CoinMarketCap, to the crypto ETFs. And there we have insight into what's happening right now, what the crypto ETFs are doing. And we're talking about BlackRock and others here. That would be another clue for me. Right now, after the hype we saw in July, we can see how much the inflow into the ETFs has actually decreased, even though we've had quite a bit more investment in Ethereum in some cases. But we can see here, overall, that the inflow is currently decreasing. Should we maybe be concerned about this? Or should the first sell-offs happen if the big investors in the ETF say, we want our money back? Which would mean BlackRock has to sell again. That could be a reason to sell something. But in any case, you should definitely have a plan in place. I really just want to emphasize this to you so that you don't end up being one of those people or end up being one of those people again who get caught up in a major sell-off, a big dump in the crypto market. Nobody wants that. This roller coaster ride is not pleasant. Taking profits is never wrong. Well, never is relative. Of course, even if it's just a little, it's still profit. But I'm really talking here about price increases like the ones we're seeing now. With an incredibly massive price surge, it's not wrong, no matter what people say. That's just my opinion. Don't take this as advice or an investment strategy. You should sell now. So far, I've only taken out 20% from my portfolio, but of course I'm ready to keep selling, and if I see that the ETFs are really starting to sell off again, then I'll realize more profits as well. Or if we see the next price level of 125 to 130,000, I'll also start selling off a portion again. But everyone should decide for themselves how much to sell off. Because having money on the side, letting it work for you, whether through lending platforms, liquidity mining, or whatever else, there are so many ways you can make even more out of it. Or, as in the example I showed here, simply by buying and selling a single Bitcoin repeatedly, you could have made $1 million since 2017. Or, starting with one Bitcoin at $3,800, you could have turned it into $110,000 in the same period. Simply by not being too greedy, and saying, hey, taking profits isn't such a bad thing. For me right now, I have to say, hey, I've never had a feeling like this in the crypto market before, so we should dump. Am I ready? Of course, I would also sell a little bit in advance or during the small dump if it happens now and I get confirmation. But just knowing what I can do with what I've already taken out, how I can use it as an investment at a later point, and where that could go in a future bull market, that's already a very, very, very pleasant feeling, something I've actually never done like this before. I've always worked for my investments so that I could reinvest again, always work to invest anew, but I never realized profits in order to actually, well, in a bull market, I realized profits, but not in a way that would really allow me to do a lot more with them. And honestly, I have to say right now, yes, here and now is actually when the preparation for your next bear market begins, not when the price starts falling again. That's why I'd really like to know. Please let me know in the comments. What is your exit strategy? Do you have a fixed price target? What if that target isn't reached for your asset, right? How would you proceed then? Where would be your lowest point at which you would, for example, sell? Or are you someone like me who does DCA when selling, a kind of dollar cost averaging on the way out? So the reverse version. The higher we go, the more I exit the market, because then I have a very, very good average selling price for my cryptos when I add everything up. And I can then, in a financial crash, and that will come. Guys, America has more debt than ever before. The value of the dollar is currently absolutely terrible, and the more money that gets printed, the worse it will become. As things stand, this will of course lead to a major financial crisis, which will persist for several years. And do you really want to be stuck in a bear market with your cryptos for several years just because people say you shouldn't sell your cryptos? No, you don't want that. On the contrary, if you have cash, when the bear market hits and we approach a bottom, you can make a lot of money. And that's exactly the point when the big players in the market start buying in, not struggling because they're in the red. No, they use the cash they took out on the way up and multiply it thanks to the bear market. I'm looking forward to your feedback. I'm really curious to hear it. Please don't say now. Manuel said you absolutely have to sell here. No, we can still go up quite a bit. I also believe that we'll keep rising. But you should just take a moment for yourself to think, when will I get out? Apparently selling XRP right now is considered a mortal sin anyway. Even here, I took out 20% of my investment. But try discussing that with someone who holds XRP, someone who's part of the XRP army. An absolute mistake, what I did, all things considered, but I have to say, I did it at the top. I sold it just a few cents before the top, and we've already dropped a bit since then. And that's how my strategy will continue as well, so that I'm really as well prepared as possible if the market crashes. And not just watching my portfolio, what I've added in assets thanks to this bull market, slowly lose value because you think, hey, the bull market isn't over yet, and then we just keep falling and falling and falling and falling. With that in mind, I don't know, this was a bit of a longer video. I just wanted to share a bit of deep mindset with you. Something a little different from my channel this time. If there's one thing I've learned, especially here in Dubai, from truly, truly successful people who have a lot of cash on the side, who also pointed out to me, hey, how many 1000% did you make with Bitcoin? And say, okay, we're at such a high and you still haven't started selling. That really opened my eyes a bit. That was also one of the reasons why I now say, I notice what, sorry for the expression, but what my retail friends are doing, all of whom are saying, Bitcoin will never fall again. I have to get in now, and this and that and over there. And then I talk to people who are on a completely different level in terms of success and wealth, and they tell me, hey, I would take some out. That's absolutely not a mistake. You should act before something happens again, and something will happen sooner or later, yes. With that in mind, take care. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ciao, ciao.